Good morning. It is 9:58 a.m. on Sunday, June 21st, 2020, Father's Day. Uh, I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. So it's Sunday, so I'm continuing my rewatch of The Legend of Korra with episode 12 of Book 1, the finale of Book 1 Air, Endgame. So this episode largely takes place in two parallel storylines. So I'm going to take those one at a time. First, let's follow Bolin, Asami, and young General Iroh along as they plan to find the hidden air base controlled by Asami's father, Hiroshi, and to disable the fighter planes so that they can't, destroy the other half of the United Forces fleet. And so they're on their way up there, and it goes wrong almost immediately. I mean, they find the base, but then as soon as they start trying to sneak inside, uh, thankfully they'll there's a nice little bit of um, seeding later developments when they make Naga stay behind. But as they go to sneak onto the ship, they find that I have a little thing on my face. Anyway, they go to sneak on board into the base and are defeated, incapacitated by some sort of an electric security device, waking up in a prison cell. And so this is paired with things going very poorly over at uh, the other storyline too. But uh, they're in trouble. It seems really bad. Not only are they captured and unable to, you know, accomplish their mission, but also Hiroshi tells them that he intercepted the message warning Commander Bumi to stay away with the rest of the forces and plans to destroy them as well. And so things are pretty dire. There's a tense moment with Asami where he tries to still play this whole I know that someday you'll come to your senses. It makes me so sad that you can't see what I'm trying to do here. And she basically just is having none of that. She just spits back at him that, mother would hate what you've become. And, he gets angry right back. I'm avenging her death. But just things are not going well between that particular father daughter relationship. But then he leaves, and thankfully, here's Naga. Yay, to save the day. And, one of the things that I will actually just point out, since I'm taking the two stories separately, is that the episode does really do a good job at cutting between them in a way that, heightens the tension and, just has everything going back and forth between them. Oh gosh, it's humid here today. I'm getting this weird little, fogging up my glasses just in that one little spot. Yeah, so that's it's a nice development of the episode to have those two storylines to cut back and forth between, keeping the tension up. But here, uh, Naga comes and saves the day, is able to smash through the bars and rescue them, and that's a very useful development. So in the meantime, we have them escaping just as the planes were about to take off. So Iroh heads off on his own track where he manages to jump on board one of the planes as it's taking off. And so now he's off on his own track for the rest of the episode. And I will say, Iroh is pretty awesome here, although it still feels just a teensy bit weird to me to have a character get introduced so late in the season and then have such a prominent role in the finale. Feels a little bit like, who's the new guy? I guess he's cool, but, it feels tacked on a little bit. This is not a huge complaint. I mean, essentially the character is very cool, but I just feel like maybe in hindsight, if he had been more a part of the season up to that point, it would have felt a little better. I don't know. Like maybe even if we had met him at the beginning of the, like if the whole problem was that he was well away from the city and wouldn't have come back to the city until the Equalists took over, like, okay, I could buy that, but what if we had met him early on when Korra was traveling to Republic City? Hmm? Or if we had met him just as he's leaving to go patrol somewhere or something, and then when he comes back, that's exciting. But, it's fine. But because, in any case, though, he gets a cool action sequence where he is, jumping from plane to plane mid flight, taking them all out with his fire bending. It's pretty cool. Certainly he's attempting to just fly one plane to take out the others for a while, and then when they take out his own plane, he jumps to the next one. There's some great aerial action stuff that's really impressive, honestly. It's a great sequence. And then, of course, it finishes with he's taken out all the other planes, but he's losing control of his own, and he manages to crash it straight into the Amon mask that's been placed on the statue of Avatar Aang. So, by him jumping out and using the banner to sort of break his fall, defacing that banner, and then the plane crashing makes the mask come off. He's restored the statue, hooray! And he thanks Avatar Aang for looking out for him. Which is, yeah, it's fun, and it resolves one of the threats, right? Which was that the planes are going to destroy the rest of the fleet. In the meantime, we have Bolin and Asami dealing with all of the mecha tanks there at the base still. Bolin starts working on destroying all of the runways, which, I don't know, I mean, I guess is good, but it's a little bit of a moot point now that the planes have already taken off. I mean, the whole reason to destroy the runways was so that they couldn't take off. That was why. I suppose they don't know that the planes wouldn't be coming back, and so it's worth doing anyway, I guess, but it's a little bit moot. But so, he gets saved by Naga when the mecha tanks come for him. There's a little bit of a how do physics work when Naga swings, he grabs the cables that they shoot out and sort of swings them around by the cables and is like, they look heavier than that, but it's fine. There's a nice bit where one of them skids to a halt on its side right up to Bolin's face, and then there's just this delayed beat where it's like, whoa! It's fun. And on the commentary for the episode, they actually talk about getting notes of people who just didn't get why it was funny for him to have that delayed reaction. Sometimes you just can't explain things like that. But in the meantime, we have Asami who takes over one of the mecha tanks on her own, and she, goes up against her father in his mecha tank, and there's lots of more of, he has just given into how angry he is in general, and also that she would challenge him. And it gets to the point where he says, I see that there's no saving you. And it's basically implied he is about to kill her. And thankfully, he had mostly disabled her mecha tank. But then Bolin and Naga come in to save the day, shouting that, you're a horrible father. And to be sure, on this Father's Day, as we discuss this episode, yeah, Hiroshi Sato, not very good. Nope. So with Bolin's help, Asami is able to get the better of him. And as he is defeated and starts to flee, there's a nice little bit of nuance there, and I think some nice character complexity on her part, because on the one hand, you could imagine letting him get away at that point, right? Because he's defeated, his fleet and his mecha tanks are destroyed, they've taken the base. Do you let him get away at that point? I don't know. It's like you can understand where Asami might feel like that's what she wants to do, is to just not see him anymore, but instead she captures him. She does not kill him. She incapacitates him with one of the electric, weapons, and to capture him and basically take him prisoner. And she does so with a tear on her face, and is like, yeah, that's sad. That's messed up. I mean, it's technically a victory for the good guys, but poor Asami, that not only did she lose her mother, but to the attack that so enraged Hiroshi, but her father basically was about to kill her, on top of all of the other awful things that he did working with Amon. But yeah, so that's a bummer of it's a bittersweet victory there up at the airbase. But so let's now return to the other storyline, with Mako and Korra attempting to stop Amon at the rally. Now armed with the knowledge of Amon's true identity, they sneak into this big rally and essentially just yell out. That's their plan to begin with, is just say, "Hey, everybody, he's a liar. He's actually a waterbender." And I think that there's another example of a nice little bit of seeding a later development when, we have a lot of the people in the audience just kind of confused, like, huh? What? The Avatar says this is weird. But we also see that lieutenant with the mustaches that, has been so loyal to Amon all along. He reacts to, like, it's one thing for everyone else to be so quick to believe, oh, wait, no, the Avatar's just a liar. But we kind of get the impression from this lieutenant is like, wait a minute. That maybe explains some things that I had questions about. So, in the meantime, he does say she's a liar. And to prove it, he removes the mask to show, supposedly, the scars on his face. We later discover their makeup. It makes me wonder, just logistically, does he just have that makeup on under the mask all the time? Probably not, right? But I guess it makes sense that he knew that this big rally was maybe a time that Korra would come, and he just wanted to have, like, all of the tricks up his sleeve, so to speak. But yeah, it did just make me kind of wonder about that a little bit. Also, I just think in the animation, like when they show him with the scarred face, they make it look like he's got some scarring on his lip that kind of distorts the shape of it, that wouldn't have just been makeup. And they don't ever really cover that. I suppose you could do it a little bit with spirit gum or something, like just an application, but it's not a big deal. But you also might wonder if, the lieutenant's right up there. He would have maybe seen closer up. But, until we, the audience, have discovered that it's makeup, it does raise the question. It's a little bit of an unsettling, like, wait a minute. If he's really scarred, what does that mean? Does that mean we're wrong? Does that mean Tarlok lied to us? And I think it's a good beat of things are not as we thought completely, and we don't know how wrong we are. And then on top of that, we discover, oh no, they've captured Tenzin and his family. Which we share Korra's dismay, saying, no, but they got away. And again, it's another element where, like, we might feel just for a moment, like, well, we were like with Korra, but they got away. And we wonder why we didn't get to see them actually being captured after all. But again, it's because, first of all, it's a show. You can't show every single thing, or it's just too long. But also, it gives us this moment, this horrified, oh no, because this immediately puts a timetable on it, right? Because we can no longer afford to, coming to the rally was supposed to just be this really excellent opportunity to try to expose him in front of a lot of people. But if that was already not working, you could withdraw and have some other plan. But now that he's got Tenzin and his family there, and he's presumably going to try to take the bending away from the last airbenders in the world, like, you have to do something about that right now. You can't just run away. And so Mako and Korra, um, you know, burst over, briefly get the better of Amon, and the advantage they have, of course, is that he can't actually use his blood bending in front of everybody, or else the game is up, right? Um, so they managed to break Tenzin and his kids free, set them off to try to find Pema and the baby. Meanwhile, Mako and Korra try to draw Amon away. He does follow them, and there's a moment of horror because he, finally catches up to them alone, so he thinks, uses his bloodbending, at which they have no defense against, and basically appears to take Korra's bending away. And it's like, oh God, and that's one of our big, act breaks when things are going horribly, horribly wrong. And there's a moment there where, we see, Korra, the Avatar has had her bending taken away. It seems like, what can we do? But at that point, we have a bit of a distraction for Amon because the lieutenant basically has seen him do the bloodbending and is, this is it's another interesting bit of nuance that the lieutenant, at least, like, it's weird because there's a moment where we're kind of on his side, like he has the courage of his convictions, like he's not a liar like Amon is. But on the other hand, that just means he has the courage of his convictions that bending is actually evil, and that means he should hate all benders, no matter whether they are actually leading a revolution on his side. Like, it's a little bit like, I'm glad that it's nuanced that, Amon is losing the support of some of his supporters, right? Like, by this exposure. So that's part of what we want to see. But there's a moment where it briefly makes us feel like we're on the lieutenant's side, even though he's really just revealing how fanatical he is on the side that we don't like. So anyway, but Amon at this point is just like, he has defeated the Avatar, which is a big thing for him, right? His whole thing with his dad was, you think this bloodbending is the most powerful thing. Well, the Avatar could take it away. The Avatar was the most powerful, and he's just taking the bending away from the Avatar. So, like, he can't let anything get in the way of that. So he sort of dispatches the lieutenant, and that distraction gives Mako just enough of an opportunity that when Amon comes to take his bending away too, he zaps him with lightning. And it's this great moment where he briefly gets the better of Amon. He's able to scoop up Korra and run away. He's very heroic in that moment. But they can't get away because the bloodbending is just too much. And so there's a moment where, once again, it looks like Mako's going to have his bending taken away. But Korra's briefly recovered enough by that point. And even though her bending is gone and she can't feel it, she is just so desperate to save Mako that as an instinct, all of her airbending training kicks in, and she does an airbending punch. And it works, and it's this great realization moment that it just, like, we don't have to understand all the ins and outs of how it works. We just get it, right? Like, before, she couldn't do airbending, but she could do the others. And so he took her bending away, but only the bending that she had done. And so now it's like she hadn't made the connection with air yet, and so she could still do it now. And like, it works. It feels good as a story beat. And of course, it allows her to air blast him out the window. And of course, what he falls into the water, and there's a moment there where he is unconscious and instinctively acts to save his life by waterbending himself up out of the water. And this is where everyone else sees, hey, isn't that Amon Waterbending? And hey, is his scar dripping away like it was makeup? And so he realizes that the gig is up. Um, what you doing, little dog? You're a good boy. The So he escapes, and we see him go and um, uh, uh, collect Tarlock, and the two of them go to escape together. And I think it's a measure of Amon's, aka Noatak's, arrogance, that the fact that he took his brother's bending away, um, and yet sort of assumes is like, hey, now that my plan has blown up, we're cool, right? We're just gonna go off and be brothers and start again somewhere else. Um, it's an interesting kind of toxic reconciliation, though, between the brothers. Because basically Tarlock is saying, I should have left with you when you did, but they both were kind of poisoned in their own way by their toxic father. So on Father's Day, here we have so many bad fathers in this particular episode, but we also have, of course, Tenzin being a great dad to his kids, and then, of course, later. But so the finale, then, we have the Tarlock and Noatak presumably escaping, but at this point we realize Tarlock, who actually has a conscience, decides that the world is better off without the two of them, and so whether or not Noatak actually had any awareness that this was about to happen, Tarlock uses one of the electrical gloves to blow up the boat that they're on, and presumably killing them both. And so, thus ends the saga of Tarlock and Noatak, aka Amon. But meantime, Avatar Korra's bending has been taken away, at least her water, earth, and fire bending. The rest of the United Fleet finally does arrive safely. We get a brief shot of Commander Boomy as this, wild man, sort of, yeehaw sort of guy, which, to only see him for about 6 seconds, what a great introduction to that character, especially when paired with Tenzin just going, great, now I have to entertain my brother. That's a nice bit. And also feels fitting given Boomy's namesake from the original series, King Boomy. But so that's a moment of lightness in otherwise pretty dark area, because they've won, but everything feels broken, right? Korra can't do her bending. Like they go back to the pole. I think it's the South Pole. And Katara tries to heal her, but the bending says that she can't heal it. Mako finally tells Korra that he loves her, but she can't hear it right now. She's too in the depths of despair, and I want to say, I guess it's technically self-pity, but it's not like, doesn't feel petty in this regard. But she's basically saying, no, you should just go off and live the rest of your life without me now that I'm not the Avatar. But that's where he's saying, it's like, but it's not like, the fact that you're the Avatar is not why I love you. But she can't hear that right now, and she goes off to be alone. And then this is where we get the moment where it at first appears that Tenzin has come to console her, and she tells him to go away. Only for it to, this new voice to say, but you called me here. And then we pull up and realize she's seeing Avatar Aang, and we learn that she has now, in the depths of her despair, made a connection to her spiritual self. And I suppose we could say that it's like, okay, well, she learned humility, which was always a theme for her, right? Because it was always an issue with her. Like, the very first time we meet her as this little kid, he's like, I'm the Avatar, you got to deal with it. And she was always so good at everything, and she got frustrated at times, and she got scared at times, but she was still never humbled as thoroughly as she was here. So I guess we can make the case that that's where there was an opening for the spiritual growth, but I still feel like we didn't really see it. We just get told by Aang, it's like, oh well, now that you got sad enough, we can restore your bending. I like that he shows up. I like that Korra gets her bending back, obviously, and is able to enter the Avatar state. So it's a happy ending, but I do feel like, unlike the bit where we realize she can actually still airbend, which just feels like it just works. It's intuitive, like we get why that why that could work. This one feels like they just have to tell us, no, this is what's happening. We can kind of hand wave that we get, I guess this is what's going on, but they don't really show it as effectively as my preference would be. But it's a happy ending nonetheless. And not only with her own bending restored, but now we see her restore bending to Lin, which is great, although it does imply that she's going to have to spend some time. Kind of like I talked about the inefficiencies of Amon being the only guy that could take people's bending away and just having like this assembly line. Well, Korra, like, it raises the question, like, is that the best use of the Avatar's time to just go through and try to find all of the people who Amon took their bending away and just restore them all one by one? How much does it take out of her? Because it seemed pretty easy for him. Well, I guess we don't get answers to those questions here. But next week, we're going to talk about episode 1 of book 2, Spirit, with the episode Rebel Spirit. And in the meantime, I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.